I'm JasonUFC, and today we have a story about UFC CEO Dana White discusses a potential Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones super fight. Dana White says this: it is a possibility. As of right now, Alex Pereira is riding high as the undisputed UFC light heavyweight champion. Alex Pereira is also a former middleweight champion, and as you can imagine, there's been a lot of talk of him jumping up to the heavyweight division. If Alex Pereira was to win a title in the UFC heavyweight division, that would make him the first three-weight world champion in UFC history. You can imagine that's probably going to happen. Let's get straight into the article. You can see this is courtesy of the Shaquille O'Neal podcast with Dana White. Obviously, I can't play any of the audio or show any images. I will leave the link in the description. We will just read a transcription of what Dana White says. This is what Dana White says on a potential Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones fight. This is what Dana White says. It is a possibility, Dana White says, of Alex Pereira moving up to heavyweight on the big podcast, Shaquille O'Neal's podcast. Joe Rogan has been pushing me right now to try to make this fight. Okay, I agree with Joe Rogan on that. It's just, guys, let me explain something to you, Dana White says. Jon Jones is on a whole nother level. Jon Jones I consider Jon Jones the greatest combat fighter of all time. When you talk about Muhammad Ali and this and that, let me tell you what, I got Muhammad Ali's picture hung everywhere. I love Muhammad Ali. I love Mike Tyson. Jon Jones is the nastiest dude in history. Okay. That's it? Okay. Yeah, so that's all Dana White basically had to say about a potential fight with Pereira and Jon Jones. I do want to preface this by saying I am a MMA casual, so I don't follow everything. I just want to give my opinion on the idea of Pereira facing Jon Jones in the near future. Pereira coming off of a win over Yuri Prochazka a few weeks ago. Pereira's next opponent will be someone named Magomed Ankalaev. I believe he's like 17, 18, 19, and 1. His only one loss, Ankalaev's only one loss, came by way of a submission. So he's never been stopped. He's never been TKO'd. He's never been KO'd in his career. So that's going to be a very not an easy fight for Alex Pereira. That's Alex Pereira's next fight. And then you have Jon Jones' next fight, which is tentatively scheduled for November versus Stipe Miocic. Jon Jones will be defending the UFC heavyweight championship versus Stipe Miocic in November of this year. The Ankalaev and the Pereira fight is scheduled, or talking about it happening basically around December. So we have a lot of answers about, who's going to face who by the end of this year. We also have Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall for the interim heavyweight UFC heavyweight championship. That fight is happening this weekend. So you would imagine the winner of Curtis Blades versus Tom Aspinall as the interim heavyweight champion would face the winner of Stipe Miocic and Jon Jones. And I mean, with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, a lot of talk of, this is like a legacy fight. Stipe Miocic, he lost his last fight. So he's not even coming off of a victory. Stipe Miocic got KO'd like 2 or 3 years ago by Francis Ngannou. So Stipe Miocic is not like on a win streak. Stipe Miocic lost his last fight. Stipe Miocic got KO'd in his last fight, and for some reason he's getting a heavyweight championship fight 2-3 years later after being knocked out. But, you look at Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya is coming off a loss versus Sean Strickland last year, and UFC is making Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. So when it comes to, championship fights in the UFC, it's very, very, very arbitrary, right? It is very arbitrary, right? Like, if they could justify Stipe Miocic getting a title fight after being knocked out 2 or 3 years ago, the UFC could justify, the winner of Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades being the interim champion, waiting almost another year for the winner of Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. And if Jon Jones wins that fight, he fights Alex Pereira. If Alex Pereira defeats MMALife. I mean, there's just so, this is like MMA math. There's so many pieces that has to fall. I think that's why Dana White really is not like talking about this issue first. And also look at Jon Jones, right? Like I said, Stipe Miocic's last fight was like 2 or 3 years ago. If Stipe Miocic, and he lost, he got KO'd. If Stipe Miocic defeats Jon Jones, when would his next fight be? Jon Jones' last fight was last year. He defeated Cyril Gane in the first round, a flawless victory, right? And then he didn't fight again for the rest of the year. That fight versus Cyril Gane for Jon Jones happened in March, and he got injured in October, right? So it's not like, Jon Jones, if he wins versus Stipe Miocic in November, he's gonna turn around and fight in like October. He may fight once a year. Jon Jones has been fighting once a year since like 2013. I know in 2018 he fought twice, but for the most part, Jon Jones has only been fighting once a year. Stipe Miocic hasn't fought in 3 years. Alex Pereira, most likely, he's gonna fight 2 or 3 times a year. But like I said, I think the reason why Dana White really obviously is not, even though a lot of the championships, in my opinion, are arbitrary, you could just make whatever you want to make. I think Dana White kind of looks at this situation like there's so many pieces that has to fall between now and then. You have Ankalaev versus Pereira. If Pereira loses, he could still go up to the heavyweight division. So it's not like he needs to be a double champion to get that 3 champion status. But if Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic, who knows what happens in that fight? Tom Aspinall and Curtis Blades, they're fighting this weekend. Who knows what happens in that fight? This is the first time someone has ever in the UFC defended an interim title. Like, you would think, why is the UFC not just having Tom Aspinall fight Jon Jones? Like, what are we doing? So there's so many pieces that has to fall. Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blades, interim UFC heavyweight championship fight this weekend. We'll see. It's the first time in history someone's ever defended it. Will it be someone that has to defend it twice? I don't know. We'll see what happens with Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic in November in MSG. Not the most active guys in the world. Whoever wins that fight, do they retire? The winner of that fight could retire. And then we have to see Pereira versus Ankalaev. Like I said, Ankalaev has only been submitted in his career. Pereira I don't know if he's ever submitted anybody before, right? Like that. So a lot of pieces has to fall, which is why I think Dana White really is not rushing to the opportunity of Jon Jones versus Alex Pereira. But let me know your opinion of this story. Who do you want to see Jon Jones fight next? Who do you want to see Alex Pereira fight next? I am JasonUFC. Today we had a story about UFC CEO Dana White discusses a potential Alex Pereira versus Jon Jones super fight, saying it's a possibility. It is obviously a possibility, but is it going to happen anytime soon? Most likely not. Most likely not. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.